G'day guys, I'm Hayden from Wagner. Today we're looking at the Wagner Vector Grip spray gun and the two ways you can go about servicing it. Most common way is just to replace the ball in the front of the gun and turn the seat over. It's got a reversible seat. So to get into there, undo the trigger. The diffuser will be nice and tight. So just a spanner. Remove the diffuser. And then you're left with the valve seat. Now quite often that can be quite tight in there. You can flick the trigger a few times and just see if it will pop out, but if it won't pop out, put your heat gun on there, put a bit of heat on the end of the tube, on the end of the gun, and then that valve seat will just pop out. Just like that. But you will have to put a bit of heat on there sometimes if it's a bit sticky. Now that valve seat is double cut. So once one side wears out, you can flip that over and use the other side. So you get two uses out of the seat. The ball bearing inside there, once that wears out and the gun starts to spit, then you have to replace it. Easy enough just to buy the kit. The kit comes with the tools that you need, the ball bearings and the spanners. This black butterfly piece, that goes down inside the gun to hold the valve stem, to stop the stem from rotating when you remove the ball. It's really important that you don't allow this to turn. Two things will happen. One, you'll break the valve stem, or two, it'll adjust the grub screw at the back of the gun and you'll lose your trigger adjustment. So the other tool just goes inside and you've got to hold it so obviously the butterfly doesn't turn. And you should be able to undo the ball bearing. There it is. Easy enough to put another one back in. I'd put just a drop of low strength Loctite on there. Definitely don't go using a stud locker because you'll have to fight with it next time you go to undo it. So just low strength, just something on there to stop it from vibrating loose. And when you do it up, it's just nipped up. You don't have to crank it. Okay, so the ball's in there. Pull the trigger. Insert the seat. We'll flip that over so the good side is facing the ball bearing. And then the diffuser gets screwed back on over the top. And then do that up nice and tight. Put the trigger on. Your trigger guard. And then you'll just pressure test that gun just like a normal gun. The second way to service that gun is by replacing the complete valve stem. And to do that, just as easy, so diffuser off. Flick that seat out. Ooh, actually stayed inside the diffuser. So there it is. Then on the back of the gun, we're going to remove the silver cap. Underneath here is that heavy spring. It's not going to pop out, but just be careful as you unscrew it. There it is there. Now that whole valve should come out the back of that gun. So if I pull the trigger, actually what we should do is undo that packing first using our spanner over the back nut here. So this is undoing the packing retainer nut. That'll make it a bit easier to remove. There we go, that's popped up. So using a spanner or something just fits in snugly underneath. You've got to be very careful that you don't bend the valve stem. I guess if you're removing it and going to replace it, it doesn't matter. But if you bend it, it's buggered. So pop that out nice and straight. And that is the complete valve stem. So you can buy that as a replacement part. So there's your packing retainer. And you'll notice that there's a slot in the back of this disc. This is the disc that your trigger pins push on. And that packing nut's got a flat on it. So those two pieces fit in together. Now when I put my spanner on there, I can tighten that up and that'll tighten up on my packings. So you'll get a brand new valve stem if that's what you want to do to service it. Put a little bit of Vaseline. I use Vaseline rather than grease, because grease, especially automotive grease, has silicone in it, and you don't want silicone coming in contact with any paint. Make sure the gun where the valve body's going to go on is nice and clean. Use a little bottle brush or something like that. You can pull the pins out and clean them if you want as well, if they need cleaning or if the pins need replacing. But that valve stem, now that it's lubed up, goes down inside the body. Push that all the way down, so now this piece here is actually locked down on top of your packing retainer, and then do that up nice and tight. It gets done up all the way home. Nice and tight. Spring in your cap goes on the top. And do that up all the way home. Doesn't have to be cranked up, just nipped up. Yeah, that's good enough. On the front, pull the trigger and your seat just sits in the front of that gun on that tube. Diffuser over the top. This does have to be done up tight. Trigger guard clipped in. Now if you have to adjust the trigger, so the correct way to adjust that trigger is if you push it forward until you can lock it, yeah, then hold it there, push the lock in, then you should get about 1/4 inch of movement before the trigger actually engages the valve stem, and that's safety. So when it's locked, the gun can't be actuated. So there should be some slop in the trigger from locked to engaged. Now that's a little bit too much slop. So I can get my Allen key, it's an 1/8, goes in the back of the gun. And if I adjust that one way, I'll put a little bit of tension on that trigger. One way the trigger goes back to the handle, the other way it goes out. So let's just try that. So from the lock position, hold it, unlock it, pull it in. I want about 1/4 inch travel before it engages. So that's about right, that feels about right. Now I'd pressure test that like we normally do. Just one point is when you put your Allen key in the back here, if you find that's really hard to adjust, there might be some Loctite on that thread on the grub screw in the back. Just put a bit of heat on there from your heat gun, just to release that Loctite. If you heat it up, of course the Loctite goes soft and then you can adjust it. So I'd be putting a bit of heat right there on that little grub screw. Heat that up a little bit, get it nice and warm. Doesn't have to be glowing red hot, just warm enough that it releases the Loctite. Then your Allen key can go in and you can adjust it from there. So guys, that's everything from me today. Hope you enjoyed that short clip, and all the best.